You've probably heard the word Agile thrown around in a meeting, right? And you just kind of nod along. It's one of the biggest buzzwords out there, but it's also one of the most misunderstood. Is it a process, a methodology, a cult? Well, today, let's dive in and finally demystify what Agile is really all about. To really wrap our heads around Agile, we first have to understand the problem it was designed to solve. And that problem comes from a simple fact. Not all work is the same. Generally speaking, the work we do falls into two very, very different worlds. So on one side, you have what we call definable work. Think of this like following a recipe you know by heart, or building something from a detailed blueprint. The steps are clear, the outcome is predictable, you've done it a million times. Assembling a car from a plan, perfect example. But then you've got this totally different beast, high uncertainty work. This is more like exploring a new country without a map. It's all about discovery, things are constantly changing, and you're solving new problems on the fly, like designing a new app from scratch or trying to figure out a marketing campaign for a brand new product. And that right there is the central challenge. Following a rigid, step-by-step plan is fantastic for the definable stuff, but it completely falls apart when you're in exploration mode. I mean, how do you plan for the unknown? How are you supposed to manage a project where change isn't just a possibility, it's practically guaranteed? Well, the answer to that question really started to take shape back in the early 2000s. A group of software developers got together and they wanted to formalize a better way of working in this uncertain world. And what came out of it was a document that became the absolute foundation for the entire Agile movement, the Agile Manifesto. And just look at how this thing starts. It's not a rule book. It doesn't lay down the law. It says, "We are uncovering better ways." That phrase is so important. It's all about learning, discovery, and continuous improvement. That idea is baked right into the DNA of Agile. And through their work, they said they came to value four key things. Now, the most crucial word on this whole slide is over. It doesn't say get rid of processes or documentation or plans. It just says that when you're dealing with high uncertainty work, you're going to get way better results if you prioritize the things on the left, people talking to each other, delivering something that actually works, and being able to adapt when you learn something new. So you can think of those four values as the big guiding stars. But to make them a bit more concrete, they're backed up by 12 guiding principles that get more specific about how you actually put this whole philosophy into practice. We won't go through all 12 right now, but you can already see a theme starting to pop up, can't you? It's all about speed, feedback, and trust. Get something valuable to the customer early and often. Don't be afraid of change, embrace it, and trust that the best ideas are going to come from teams that are empowered to figure things out for themselves. So, when you put the values and the principles together, you start to realize something really important. Agile isn't just a process you follow or a set of boxes you check. It's a fundamental shift in how you think. It's a mindset. This diagram here shows the hierarchy perfectly. See, everything starts with the Agile mindset. That mindset is then defined by those four values we just talked about. Those values are then guided by the 12 principles, and only then, way down at the bottom, do you get to the specific practices, things like daily stand-up meetings or sprints. Those are just the tools. All the real power comes from the mindset. Now, it's also important to know that these ideas didn't just appear out of nowhere. Agile is really a descendant of an even broader philosophy called lean thinking. Lean is all about being laser-focused on delivering value and getting rid of anything, and I mean anything, that doesn't contribute to that value. They call it waste. So you can see how Agile's idea of valuing working software over comprehensive documentation is a direct echo of that core lean principle. And this right here is probably why the word Agile gets so confusing. It's not one single specific method. It's a giant umbrella term for a whole family of different frameworks and approaches. You might have heard of Scrum or Crystal or XP that all share that same DNA, a DNA that's rooted in the Manifesto's values and principles. This family tree does a great job of showing that relationship. Lean thinking is the big picture philosophy, and then inside that, you have specific applications like the Agile approaches we've been talking about, and others like the Kanban method, which also comes from that same lean heritage. Okay, so how does all this actually come together in the real world? If Agile is a specific tool for a specific type of problem, how do you know when you should actually use it? How do you match your approach to the work you're doing? Well, there's a fantastic tool for this called the Stacy Complexity Model. It helps us map out our work based on two key questions. Along the bottom, we've got technical uncertainty. Basically, how well do we know how to build this thing? And then up the side, we've got requirements uncertainty. How well do we know what we're supposed to build? All right, let's start in the bottom left corner. When you know exactly what to build and exactly how to build it, the work is simple. This is our definable work, our blueprint. Everything is clear, everything is understood. Now, as we move out from that corner, things get complicated. This happens when there's a lot of uncertainty in just one of those areas. Maybe we know exactly what we want, but we have no idea how to build it. Or we know the tech inside and out, but the customer's requirements are super fuzzy. It's going to require some real experts and some good planning, but it's still manageable. But the real action, the real challenge, lives up here in the top right. This is the complex zone. This is where we don't really know what we want, and we don't really know how to build it either. This is our unexplored territory. We can't draw a detailed map before we start because we don't even know the final destination. And here's the punchline. Those traditional plan-from-the-start linear approaches, they work perfectly fine in the simple and complicated zones. But for those truly complex problems, you need a different kind of tool. You need an adaptive approach. You need an agile approach, which is built from the ground up to navigate that kind of uncertainty. So how do these adaptive approaches actually navigate that complexity? Well, it's all about creating these really fast learning cycles. They use tactics like super short feedback loops and delivering a working piece of the project frequently. This lets the team learn as fast as possible so they can constantly adapt their process, reprioritize what's important, and update their plans based on what they're learning in the real world, not just on assumptions they made months ago. So let's boil this all down. What are the key things to remember? First, Agile was born to handle complex, high uncertainty work. Second, at its heart, it's a mindset built on 4 core values that prioritize people and adaptation. Third, it's an umbrella term for a whole family of adaptive methods. And maybe most important of all, the goal is never just to be agile. The real goal is to deliver value to your customers. So I'll leave you with one final question to think about. When you look at the projects you work on every day, ask yourself, are you following a detailed blueprint, or are you leading an exploration into the unknown? The answer to that question will tell you everything you need to know about the best way to get it done.